UFC Fight Night 176 Jacksonville Overeem versus Harris took place last night, and I'm sure we can all agree it was an amazing event despite some of the decisions that we disagree with. It was an amazing night of fights. Every single fight on the card delivered. I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed every single one of them, but we're left with the same question that we're left with every single time an event is over. What happens next? What fights do we make next? I'm going to be going through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving you my next fights to make for both the winners and the losers of the bouts, starting with our early prelim opener of Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira versus Don'Tale Mayes. I feel as though Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira deserves a jump up. He had a great performance in his debut, stays undefeated, he's got a lot of hype behind him now, I'm sure. Next time I want to see him a little bit boosted up the card, because a lot of these heavyweights have been getting spots on main cards of pay-per-views, but this guy can't even get a spot 2 positions up on the prelims, which is weird to me, but either way, he's undefeated. Another Brazilian heavyweight at the bottom of the ladder. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima coming off a big win against Ben Sassoli at UFC Auckland in February. Their schedules are reasonably similar. I say you match the pair of them up with each other at the end of the year. 2 Brazilian heavyweights going at it. There can only be one. And I hope that's Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira because he's undefeated. And he also looks a bit more of the part than Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. However, Don'Tale Mayes on the other hand. We're going to start on a bit of a sour tune. Time to go. You know, you got into the UFC fighting Cyril Gane. You probably didn't deserve to be there in the first place. I'll be honest with you. 6-2 is not a heavyweight's record to get into the UFC. Usually they come in undefeated quite often. You've lost 2 in a row. I think that Don'Tale Mayes' next fight should be with the Bellator negotiating room, where he'll be signing his new contract. I don't mean to be mean here, but that's just kind of how it works. Don'Tale Mayes, you tried, you weren't good enough, time to go. I know it's a harsh business, but that's just the way it works when you lose 2 in a row and you don't win inside the UFC. Don'Tale Mayes is gone, 6-4. Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira versus Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, moving on. Courtney Casey got a big win over Mauro Romero Barella. It was actually an interesting fight while it lasted. Everyone's talking about the Barella scream that she came out with. Actually, Courtney Casey got a performance bonus here, which is mad. But they just found any excuse to give it to her, I guess. She got a finish for once. Courtney Casey, nice. A female flyweight fight, did well. Great submission in the first round. I don't know who I want to see her fight next. Maybe Molly McCann, who's also a women's flyweight that's looking for an opponent right now if Courtney Casey wants a quick turnaround. Who knows? Courtney Casey versus Molly McCann sounds great. There's a bunch of fights of women's flyweight she can take on next. Mauro Romero Barella, that's 3 in a row. You're now 12-8. Again, time to go. We can't cling on to these people. We're clinging on to Courtney Casey and she's 9-7. You know? Just because she's winning, she's still here. Mauro Romero Barella. That's 3 in a row. It's time to go. Okay? Goodbye, Mauro Romero Barella. Moving on. Darren Elkins versus Nate Landwehr. Darren Elkins. It was a close fight, so I'm going to maybe try and appease both sides of the argument here. Some people thought Nate Landwehr won. Some people thought Darren Elkins won. As far as bad decisions go, this was nowhere near as bad as some of the other decisions on the card. However, I think Nate Landwehr is going to jump right up those rankings because Darren Elkins, like it or not, is top 20 right now. He's only lost to some of the great guys in the division. Alexander Volkanovski, Ricardo Lamas, Ryan Hall as well in the fight before that. I mean, Darren Elkins has only lost to some great guys. He's still high up the rankings, which means that Nate Landwehr is going to fucking rocket way up those ranking spots. For the people that didn't think he won, I've got a little present for you. I think the next fight that could make sense is Nate Landwehr versus Zubaira Tukhugov. So if you want to see Nate Landwehr punished a little bit, then you've got your nice little treat there. And if you think that Nate Landwehr can beat Zubaira Tukhugov, by the way, he's going to be similarly ranked towards Tukhugov as well, so that's actually a fight that makes somewhat sense. Nate Landwehr versus Zubaira Tukhugov, sign me up. Both guys on a 1-fight win streak. Zubaira is coming off a draw before his last win over Kevin Aguilar to Lerone Murphy, which kind of should have been a win anyway, but either way, both guys are coming off 1 win in the UFC. They're in very similar positions. They just both need to put together a little bit of a streak before they start rising through the rankings even more. Nate Landwehr versus Zubaira Tukhugov. Great stuff. Artem Lobov doesn't seem to be signing back to the UFC for the Tukhugov fight, so you know what? Landwehr versus Tukhugov it is. And for Darren Elkins, again, fighting with the Bellator negotiation room. I love Darren Elkins, but he's not a huge name as much as Jeremy Stephens and Donald Cerrone are, so you can't keep losing that many fights in a row, and this one may have been one too many. I know it was a close decision. I just burped. I know it was a close decision that could have arguably gone to Darren Elkins. A very close fight. I don't think it was that bad of a robbery, but You know, I could have seen that fight going to Elkins. I could be swayed to see it going to Landwehr as well. I rewatched a bit of it. The third round is really where it all gets a bit added up. Nate Landwehr rocked him at the end, but Elkins was doing a lot of damage. But then again, Elkins was covered in blood, so it's kind of agreeable that the judges... You can kind of accept that mistake by the judges compared to some of the other fights. But Darren Elkins, I think it's maybe time to hang it up. That's a lot of damage you're taking in your career, a lot of scar tissue on your face that's not going to do you any favours in the judges' eyes ever again. I just feel as though Darren Elkins has got to go. It's not like Jeremy Stephens, where he's fighting and he's losing, but he's losing in main events and main cards of pay-per-views. He's on the prelims, early prelims, you know? Different situations. I feel like they should maybe let Darren Elkins go, but Nate Landwehr gets the job done. Giga Chikadze versus Rivera. Rivera, I'd love to see stay in the UFC. I don't know who I want to see him take on next. A bantamweight with one win would make some level of sense. I don't know who that could be. However, I want to see him go back to his normal weight class. Maybe take a fight against a decent bantamweight like Jack Shaw, who's on a streak right now. Obviously, we're not going to do him too many favours, but we're going to give him a guy. Undefeated, Jack Shaw, one win in the UFC. Rivera showed that he can hang with featherweights and big featherweights in Giga Chikadze as well. Rivera versus Jack Shaw. Sounds great to me at UFC Dublin in August. Good stuff. Whittaker versus Till. Amazing. Put that on the card. I like Rivera. I like the fact that he stepped up. I like the fact that he lasted to a decision against Giga Chikadze. I don't like the fact that Giga Chikadze could not find the finish against a guy who took the fight on a day's notice up a weight class. That really does fucking annoy me. However, Giga Chikadze deserves a new opponent. He is very lowly ranked in the division because none of his wins so far have meant anything whatsoever. He took on Jamal Emmers, who was a guy coming in on short notice. He took on Brandon Davis, who was a guy who was planning on moving down to bantamweight and took the fight on short notice at UFC Copenhagen. He hasn't got any meaningful wins yet. He's just been kind of fed can after can after can after can, but he's slowly winning them. So I think that now it might be time for a little bit of a step up in competition. Giga Chikadze versus Ricardo Ramos is an amazing fight. Ricardo Ramos used to be a bantamweight, which I guess Giga Chikadze, you could say, is used to fighting by now. Now Ramos has moved up to featherweight. He's more of a natural featherweight. He was way too big to be cutting down to bantamweight in hindsight. Beat Luis Eduardo Gregori in his debut at featherweight as well. They're both similarly ranked. Ricardo Ramos versus Giga Chikadze makes sense to me next. And the winner of that will be on a nice big streak, and they can have their jump up the rankings that they so desperately want. Ricardo Ramos versus Giga Chikadze, and Jack Shaw versus Rivera. Moving on. Anthony Hernandez versus Kevin Holland. Holland made it look easy. Immediately destroyed him. Anthony Hernandez is going to have to jump right back to the bottom of the queue and I believe take on a loser that could be Darren Stewart. Maybe. That would be a decent fight. Darren Stewart's coming off. You could also give him a fight like maybe Marcus Perez. Actually, I'll go with Marcus Perez. I like that fight even more. Anthony Hernandez versus Marcus Perez. Both guys coming off losses. They're closer to each other in the rankings as well. So it makes a little bit more sense than the first guy I suggested in Darren Stewart. Anthony Hernandez versus Marcus Perez. Good stuff. Moving on. Kevin Holland. Great performance. What does he do next from here? There's a guy in Carl Roberson who is not going to get a fight re-signed with Marvin Vettori. I would not blame Marvin Vettori if he never wanted to sign to fight Carl Roberson ever again, to be honest with you, the way that Carl Roberson pulled out. I still don't know the reason, by the way. I think it was some kind of muscle atrophy or some kind of situation from the weight cut. But either way, Marvin Vettori is not looking to rebook. Marvin Vettori is now looking onwards to bigger and better things. He did Roberson a favour by accepting the fight in the first place. Roberson fucked him over, but Roberson still needs an opponent. Roberson versus Kevin Holland. Amazing fight. I'd look forward to it. It's a great fight. Kevin Holland has every chance in that fight. He's got great kickboxing. He's also got great grappling and submission skills as well. If he wants to test out Roberson's ground game, that's a good fight. Kevin Holland versus Carl Roberson. Anthony Hernandez versus Marcus Perez. Moving on, Matt Brown versus Miguel Beza. Great performance from both men. I think we can all agree. Matt Brown put on a show in the first round. Eventually, Miguel Beza got comfortable, shook off the cobwebs from the big shots that he was eating in the first round. Eventually ended up dropping Matt Brown at the end of the first and then got the win in the second. I feel as though Miguel Beza should be looking to take on a guy like maybe Diego Lima. A guy coming off some wins. I believe on a 3-fight win streak right now. He's coming off an injury. He was supposed to be fighting a while ago. I can't remember what card he was supposed to be fighting on, but it was a very long time ago. He injured his neck. He was supposed to be fighting Alex Moreno. That didn't happen. Chaos Williams stepped in on short notice. I don't want to do Chaos Williams versus Miguel Beza because that's just cancelling out two potential young up-and-coming stars. Miguel Beza should take on whoever I just fucking said. Diego Lima, that's the guy. Diego Lima versus Miguel Beza makes sense to me. And Matt Brown, on the other hand, no need to take on these hot streaking contenders. Matt Brown can still make good money. He shows he can still hang with these guys, even if he can't take the same amount of punishment. He can put a hurting on guys in that first round. He's still got the skills to do so. I just feel like Matt Brown should be looking for different kinds of fights. Matt Brown versus Robbie Lawler, rematch. Matt Brown, Carlos Condit. Like, there's good, fun matchups with guys that aren't hot, up-and-coming stars that have been annihilating everyone that Matt Brown could take that no one would feel angry about. I'm sure everyone would agree when I say that Matt Brown probably deserves a little bit of a time off. Or he could just take on Mike Perry. If he wants the biggest name and a potentially winnable fight that he might get KO'd in, but he could definitely win it. Mike Perry versus Matt Brown sounds good to me. I feel like Matt Brown versus Carlos Condit would also be a great fight, however. Moving on to the main card, Song Yudong versus Marlon Vera. A lot of people disagree with the decision. I actually rewatched it a little bit closer than I remembered it was, but I still had Marlon Vera winning. But I'm not... There's a reason, if you look at my thumbnails on the videos that I put out yesterday with my reactions to the fights on the card, I put robbery in the Hill Godelia one, which still was quite close, I'll be honest with you. I put robbery in that title. I put robbery in the title of Ige versus Barboza. I didn't put it in the title of Yudong versus Vera. I just said that Marlon won in the thumbnail. That was my opinion. I just thought, you know what, close fight. I thought Marlon Vera won. It wasn't a blatant robbery. I know that word gets thrown around a little bit, but it was a bad decision in my opinion. Marlon Vera should have got the job done over Song Yudong. But either way, I feel like we can reward both guys with decent matchups. Song Yudong needs to improve his game, okay? Because you're not going to beat top 5 guys fighting like that against guys in Marlon Vera who still haven't reached their full potential yet. Song Yudong, in my opinion, should be looking for a fight with maybe Rob Font. I feel like that would be a great fight for him to take. Song Yudong, Rob Font, both guys coming off wins. Close, razor-close wins as well. Rob Font just beat Ricky Simone in his last fight, and that was a razor-close fight, but he got his hand raised, rightfully so. Song Yudong, razor-close fight with Marlon Vera. Maybe do Song Yudong versus Rob Font. Sounds good to me. And Marlon Vera, on the other hand, originally was supposed to be fighting Jimmy Rivera. I don't know. Jimmy Rivera accepted the Marlon Vera fight when Marlon Vera was on a hot streak. I feel as though Jimmy Rivera will be more open to the Marlon Vera fight now that Marlon Vera is coming off a loss. Also, Jimmy Rivera is coming off some losses, so it actually makes more sense of a matchup than it did in the first place. Jimmy Rivera versus Marlon Vera. That way, Song Yudong gets a great opponent in the rankings that he can fight against. Marlon Vera gets a jump up the rankings that he kind of deserves because everyone thought he beat Song Yudong. Well, the majority of people thought he beat Song Yudong. It was a close fight, I get it. But Marlon Vera gets a jump up, so does Song Yudong. And guess what? If they both win, Song Yudong's going to naturally move up the rankings anyway, because if Marlon Vera beats Jimmy Rivera, Song Yudong's going to have to go up if he beats Rob Font and stay above Marlon Vera because he does technically have a win for him, or a win over him. And it's a win-win for both guys. Marlon Vera, Jimmy Rivera, Song Yudong, Rob Font. Moving on, Eric Anders versus Christoph Jotko. I'm going to get to it now. Speed this shit up because this was a shit fight. Eric Anders versus Christoph Jotko. Anders is kind of losing a bit of hype, I feel like. Good redeemer of hype. Another guy who was on a bit of a streak recently that now is not and is coming off a bit of a humiliating loss. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. Darren Stewart coming off a loss, was on a 2-fight win streak just like Eric Anders. Lost a fight to Bartosz Verbinski. You know, Anders just lost to Jotko. Anders versus Darren Stewart makes all the sense in the world to me. UFC Dublin. It's a great card for these European guys in Darren Stewart from the UK to fight on. Eric Anders, I'm sure, wouldn't mind flying over there once this whole pandemic thing is over, I'm sure. I'm sure the pandemic will be over by August. And if it's not, corrupt politics. But either way, Christoph Jotko, on the other hand, is going to be looking up those rankings. I feel like he actually deserves a ranked opponent more than maybe Marvin Vettori, because Marvin Vettori beat some guys, but Christoph Jotko, that's 3 in a row for him now, you know, and he's lost to Uriah Hall, and he's lost to Brad Tavares and some of these other guys, but I feel as though Christoph Jotko versus Omari Akhmedov would be an amazing fight to make. Omari Akhmedov up the rankings. They're both from that Eurasian steppe. When Europe turns to Asia, around that borderline, you've got Jotko from Poland. He's more in Europe, of course. You've got Akhmedov in Dagestan, the Eurasian steppe. They're both in a similar part of the world. So whenever there's a card around that area, maybe when they rebook UFC Kazakhstan, perhaps, which I know is quite close to that area, they could do it there. Or whenever they make the decision to do UFC Dagestan, which 100% should happen because we've got enough talent coming out of that area, Christoph Jotko versus Omari Akhmedov is an amazing fight to make. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart on the other hand as well. Christoph Jotko looks like Arnold Allen's dad. Moving on. Dan Ige versus Edson Barboza. Thought Barboza won it. pretty fucking clearly, even though Ige was outlanding him. Barboza hurt him to the body, knocked him down in the first round as well. I just thought that Barboza got it, especially at the end of the second. He was on top, raining down punches. It's a good look. I feel Barboza won the fight, rounds 1 and 2 pretty clearly. But Dan Ige, I rewatched it, fucking good. Not as clear of a win. I thought it was a clear win for Barboza, but not like a blatant fucking, oh my god, how could they do this? Dan Ige was doing good in that fight, despite me thinking that he lost the fight pretty clearly. I mean, he was in it. He was in it, and he was making it competitive every single round. Dan Ige should fight Arnold Allen. I just spoke of him against, when I was talking about Krzysztof Jotko, accidentally. I didn't even mean to make that link between the two fights. Dan Ige versus Arnold Allen. Great fight to make. I don't think Josh Emmett's going to be looking for an Arnold Allen kind of opponent. I think Josh Emmett's looking for more Burgoses, Katars, these guys that are stuck in the middle of the rankings that really need to earn a big win and a big name win so they can jump up. I think Josh Emmett, if he was smart right now, should be looking for the Calvin Kattar fight, because that's what's going to get him all the attention, and that's what's going to get him to jump up the rankings, and the same for Calvin Kattar. I don't think Emmett's going to want to rebook versus Allen. There's nothing to gain for Emmett there. And I think that's maybe why he pulled out the first time, or wasn't too hesitant about pulling out the first time. Either way, Dan Ige versus Arnold Allen. Match the two of them together. I think it would be an amazing competitive fight. I wouldn't mind Dan Ige's chances in that fight. I think he actually would probably be the favourite there after this win against Barboza. Dan Ige versus Arnold Allen. Great fight to make. I'm looking forward to it. Dan Ige, Arnold Allen, and Edson Barboza on the other hand. Career's probably over. It's pretty rough, I'll be honest, but if his career isn't over, then and he wants to fight at featherweight one more time, listen. Jeremy Stephens versus Edson Barboza. If Jeremy Stephens doesn't want to fight Donald Cerrone up a weight class and wants to try and make that featherweight weight cut again, because to be fair to him, you know, this was like the first time in a while that he's missed weight as far as I can remember. Like, he hasn't seemed to have a problem with it outside the pandemic. Edson Barboza, Jeremy Stephens, 145, loser goes home. Last chance salvager for Edson Barboza's career? Who knows? But if Jeremy Stephens doesn't want to go up to 55 and fight Cerrone like I suggested he should do, Jeremy Stephens versus Edson Barboza, loser goes home, winner gets a spot in the top 10, makes all the sense in the world to me. Moving on. I don't know about top 10 though, I don't know where Jeremy Stephens is ranked. Top 15. They get a ranking spot, I would say. Edson Barboza, Jeremy Stephens, great fight to make. Dan Ige, Arnold Allen, great fight to make. Moving on. Claudia Godelia versus Angela Hill. Oh, Dan Ige fought at UFC Liverpool. Hang on, I've outfought my own brain here. I didn't even realise how smart I was. Dan Ige fought in UFC Liverpool, got a bonus on that card because the UFC Liverpool card, if you remember, was utter fucking dog shit. Was it UFC Liverpool? No, it wasn't UFC Liverpool. It was UFC London. UFC London, Dan Ige got a rear naked choke against someone on the card, earned a big bonus, made a splash in that card as well, because that whole card was fucking terrible. So much so that Darren Till got a fight of the night bonus just for knocking down Masvidal once. You know, that's how bad the card was. Dan Ige got a rear naked choke. The UK fans know of him. Do it in Dublin. And I feel like I'm mentioning the Dublin card a lot here, but it makes every level of sense. Arnold Allen from England, fighting in Dublin. He's fought there before as well. Dan Ige has fought in England before. They know him over there. We know him over here. I'm from England. I'm from London. We know him. Dan Ige versus Arnold Allen on the Dublin card. On the main card as well. Amazing stuff. Moving on. They're both ranked. Good matchup. Probably feature fight of the main card. Third fight down the list. Either way. Moving on. Claudia Godelia versus Angela Hill. Godelia called out Esparza, which I knew she was going to do. That's the fight to make. The rematch. Esparza accused her of greasing the first time as well in their first fight. Claudia Godelia says, "Stop the fucking excuses, Esparza. Come on, man." And then Claudia Godelia versus Carter Esparza 2 basically just got made on the spot. I saw it happening. That was the fight to make. And for Angela Hill, on the other hand, Angela Hill versus Michelle Waterson is a great fight that makes every level of sense, because a lot of people thought Angela Hill won against Claudia Godelia. It was a close fight, but Angela Hill, I felt like, edged it in that third round, especially by outlanding Godelia by 10 strikes. Fair enough if Godelia was landing the bigger shots, but Angela Hill only landed 3 more than her. You know, like when there's a difference in striking of like 3 strikes or 2 strikes, and one guy's landing a bit of the cleaner shots, or one girl in this case, I can get the decision. But when they're outstruck by 10, like it, then I don't think the cleaner shots can really make too much of a difference. But either way, close fight. I thought Angela Hill got it. Reward her. Great fight with her and Michelle Waterson could happen next. And Michelle Waterson, Carla Esparza just fought, so they're going to have similar schedules to these girls on this card. Claudia Godelia versus Carla Esparza 2. Winner gets a shot against someone in the top 3. I think Godelia would win that fight pretty handedly. Good stuff, though. Good stuff. Claudia Godelia Esparza, Angela Hill versus Michelle Waterson. Good shit. Alistair Overeem versus Walter Harris. Here's where things get very, very interesting. Almost perfect the way things have worked out at heavyweight, because right now we've got two guys who need opponents, Derek Lewis and Rozenstruik. One's coming off a win, one's coming off a loss. We've got two guys who need opponents here, Alistair Overeem and Walter Harris. One's coming off a win, one's coming off a loss. Walter Harris is going to have to wait 6 months after this one, I'm sure. Maybe even Overeem's probably going to have to wait 6 months as well. He did take a beating. I think at the end of the year, you bring back both Overeem and Harris, Rozenstruik and Derek Lewis. Maybe around September, maybe around November, where UFC 244 was, that kind of time. Whenever they're planning on doing Usman versus Masvidal, who the fuck knows at this point if that fight's even happening. But either way, I think two great heavyweight fights on the main card of any pay-per-view, or two heavyweight fights that could headline a main event of a fight night and the other be on the main card of a pay-per-view. Alistair Overeem versus Derek Lewis. Good stuff. Walt Harris versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Good stuff. Great matchups. Both of them need those wins, and if Walt Harris doesn't want to take on Rozenstruik, or Rozenstruik doesn't want to take on a big power puncher in Harris after getting KO'd by Ngannou like that, then maybe Rozenstruik can sit out a little bit longer, because Ngannou really did take that man's soul. He really did take that man's soul, so maybe he's going to want a little bit more time off. If Walt Harris wants to get back in there, Fabricio Verdum has one more fight on his contract. Harris got submitted by Verdum in the first round of their first fight by taking it on short notice. Got armbarred in the first round like it was nothing. I'm sure Harris is going to want a return of that fight, especially now that he saw Verdum's performance against Olenek, which was way less than impressive. Olenek, Verdum versus Harris, or Harris versus Rozenstruik, and then Overeem versus Derek Lewis. There's no other fight than Overeem Derek Lewis, and then Overeem Derek Lewis winner can fight the winner of Curtis Blades versus Alexander Volkov, and the winner of that fight can get the next title shot after Ngannou. Good stuff. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you later. And hopefully Ngannou fights Jones, but I don't think Jones is going to fight him. I'm just going to reiterate that opinion here. Jones ain't going to fight Ngannou. Doesn't want it. Doesn't want it at all. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. See you later.